Welcome. Take a moment to settle in. Most people believe they see life clearly, as if through a perfect pane of glass. We trust our perception as an accurate record of the world around us. But the mind does not simply observe reality. It actively constructs it. It filters it through a lens shaped by your past, your beliefs and your expectations. Every moment, your brain is flooded with millions of bits of information. To prevent overwhelm, it must decide what is important enough to notice and what can be safely ignored. This filtering process happens quietly and automatically beneath the surface of your conscious awareness, yet it profoundly shapes how you interpret situations, how you remember experiences, how you feel about your life and your place in it. Over time, the mind develops habits. It begins to notice certain patterns more easily than others. For many people, due to an ancient survival instinct, the mind becomes expertly trained to recognize problems first. It becomes a specialist in threat detection, the mistake that happened earlier today, the critical feedback you received last week, the uncertainty that still needs solving tomorrow, the constant nagging pressure to improve something that feels unfinished. These are the details your mind learns to magnify. Even when many aspects of life are working well, your attention can become captured and held hostage by what is unresolved. This is not a personal failure or a sign of weakness. It is simply how the mind learns when left on autopilot. And what the mind learns to notice eventually becomes the world it believes it lives in, a world defined by its gaps and imperfections. But here is the good news. Attention can be retrained. When awareness is intentionally shifted toward appreciation, perception itself begins to change. Gratitude is not just a fleeting positive feeling, it is a practice. It is a way of deliberately teaching the mind to recognize what supports you, what nourishes you, and what is already whole. And when the mind learns to see support as clearly as it once saw problems, life begins to feel different, richer, more balanced, not because reality changed overnight, but because your mind has finally learned to notice more of it. The mind only notices what it is trained to notice. Imagine walking through a forest. At first, everything appears random, a chaotic blend of sensory information. Trees, leaves, shadows, sounds. It's an overwhelming tapestry of life. But after a few minutes, your mind, seeking order in the chaos, begins to notice patterns. You recognize certain paths, distinguishing the well-trodden from the faint. You notice familiar shapes in the bark of the trees. You start to understand where the ground is stable and where it is uneven. Learning the subtle language of the landscape, the mind learns through repetition. This is the fundamental principle of its operation. What it notices repeatedly becomes easier to see, forming a mental shortcut. What it ignores becomes effectively invisible, filtered out from your conscious awareness. This selective attention isn't a flaw, it's a survival mechanism designed to prevent overwhelm. But the filter it creates is powerful, and it shapes our entire reality. Life works the same way. If the mind repeatedly scans for problems, it becomes extremely skilled at finding them. It develops a kind of negative expertise. Every uncertainty stands out, flagged as a potential threat. Every mistake becomes memorable, replayed and analyzed. Every difficulty feels larger, magnified by a mind trained to see only obstacles. But when the mind begins to practice appreciation, a profound shift occurs. Attention slowly changes, recalibrating its focus. Moments of support, once overlooked, become easier to recognize. A helpful conversation that offered a new perspective. A moment of calm amidst a busy day. A problem that resolved itself more smoothly than expected. A small kindness from a stranger. These moments were always present, woven into the fabric of each day. They simply were not being noticed because the mind was trained to look elsewhere. Gratitude is not about ignoring the difficult. It is about training the mind to also recognize the good, restoring balance to our perception. When attention changes, emotional experience changes as well. The nervous system responds directly to what the mind perceives. If the mind constantly detects threats or problems, the body remains in a subtle state of tension. Breathing becomes shallow, thoughts accelerate, patience becomes harder. But when attention begins to recognize supportive experiences, the nervous system receives a different signal. Safety becomes visible. The body softens, breathing deepens, mental clarity improves. This does not mean life becomes perfect, but the mind begins to recognize that life contains more than difficulty. It also contains support, moments of calm, moments of connection, moments of quiet progress. This recognition creates stability, and stability is the foundation of inner strength. Gratitude, much like a muscle, develops through consistent practice. It's a deliberate mental skill that strengthens with each repetition. Our minds are naturally wired to scan for threats and problems, a remnant of our evolutionary past. But through conscious effort, we can retrain this default setting, creating new neural pathways that make appreciation a more automatic response. One of the simplest and most effective exercises involves setting aside a quiet moment at the end of each day. Before sleep, take a few deep breaths and ask yourself one simple question: what supported me today? The answer does not need to be dramatic or monumental. In fact, often the most meaningful moments are subtle and easily overlooked. Perhaps it was a task completed, giving you a sense of accomplishment, a quiet conversation that provided unexpected clarity, or simply a moment of profound rest after a busy and demanding day. By acknowledging these small supports regularly, the mind slowly retrains itself. Instead of scanning constantly for problems and deficiencies, your attention becomes more capable of recognizing the steady presence of support that surrounds you. Another useful practice is finding gratitude during times of uncertainty. When something difficult appears on your path, pause and ask a different, more expansive question. What might this moment be developing within me? Sometimes the answer appears immediately, a clear insight into the qualities being forged in the fire of the challenge: patience, resilience, a deeper sense of perspective. Other times, the answer appears much later, perhaps weeks or even years down the road. But the simple act of asking this question fundamentally changes the emotional relationship you have with the experience. It shifts the focus from suffering to learning. Instead of feeling powerless or victimized by circumstances, the mind begins to recognize that, even in difficulty, growth is still unfolding. As appreciation deepens, awareness becomes quieter. The constant pressure to chase something new begins to soften. Instead of always reaching forward, the mind begins to recognize the value of what already exists. The present moment becomes more visible, small experiences become meaningful. A quiet walk, a calm breath, a moment of reflection. These moments do not demand attention, but when they are noticed, they create a sense of connection. Connection to life, connection to growth, connection to the unfolding process of becoming stronger. Gratitude does not create this connection, it reveals it. It shows the mind what was already present. Over time, gratitude becomes less of an exercise and more of a perspective. The mind naturally begins to recognize supportive moments. Appreciation appears without effort. Experiences feel more balanced, challenges still occur, but they no longer define the entire picture, because the mind now sees more of reality. It sees both difficulty and support, both uncertainty and growth, both effort and progress. This balanced awareness is where inner strength develops most naturally, because strength does not come from forcing life to be perfect. It comes from recognizing the resources that already exist within it. When the mind learns to notice those resources, stability becomes possible, clarity becomes possible, and the quiet confidence of inner strength begins to grow. Stay if this space helps you build inner strength and awareness, cultivating inner strength and healing from within.